How is it going into Malagant here? We are going to be checking my Dervish a little bit before we jump right into it. I'm going to try and like keep this video a little bit, smaller, shorter, let's say, than the Purifier guide, build guide that I had. And what we're gonna do is that, like, if you have any questions at all, or if you would like me to explain something new, or something about this Dervish, please feel free to like comment down below, and if I'll do my best to answer you there. And if I feel like a video is necessary for that, there'll be a part 2 where I'll explain additional stuff about this character. So on the top right now, I'll give you a link when it comes to how this character is performing, and it will be in Crucible. In fact, Hardcore Crucible Gladiator 170. So it will be sort of like a challenging content, and you can see exactly the same character going through that challenge as well. So that's kind of a good thing. But we can do something kind of silly in the meantime on this guy as well, just to showcase the character. So if you would like to see it on a hard content, definitely check out like the top right Gladiator Crucible. Check that out. So one thing out of the way, the character is incredibly mobile. You really don't need the Vias Might. The reason that I have taken is just another extra mobility for myself. Recently I have been farming like these key dungeons, such as like Steps of Torment, Bastion of Chaos, Port Valkyrie, etc. I have been farming them like religiously because of trying to getting both the Vanquisher pieces, some MIs, World Eater or whatnot on my stream. And because of this reason, I was, zooming around, and this character is one of the better ones to do that, because it not only has Shadow Strike, but also has Fire's Might, and on top of it all, we also have one more, mobility coming from the components, which is, in this case, I'm using a Rune of Dreeg's Vector, which is a teleport, a poison spreading teleport. Our poison part of the character is quite high. Because of this reason, as you know, how damage over time works in this game is that like it's adding damage over time as long as it's the same damage type, adding damage over time from like different sources and then ticking together. So this is a new source of damage over time, so it's really good for this character. So let's see it in action a little bit, see like how it performs. You might actually hate the fact that I'm rotating my camera. Sorry about that, but it gives you that much more speed when it comes to being able to see the edge of your screen, obviously. So you've seen the mobility, let's say. You don't necessarily need to skip anything at all. It's incredibly fast when it comes to killing peasants as well. So if you want to like kill every single peasant, it's very fast in that as well. All you need to do is, instead of like linking two mobilities back to back, you just get a spin in between. That's pretty much it. It's killing even the heroes, I would say, as fast as killing just regular monsters. Yeah, Hudson Furies. Yeah, let's see if there are any bees. Not really. So how you want to play is that, like, after engaging guys with a Shadow Strike on a hero or on your main target, let's say on the main guy, the Shadow Strike is going to be having the Abomination proc. This is like your biggest proc when it comes to the poison. Poison is very big on your guy. The secondary thing is that, like, you can again put the poison with the teleport as well, the second button right over here, the Masterful Dreeg. Only do this if it's like, I wouldn't even do it versus a single target. I would do it something like multiple stuff that I'm trying to kill at the same time. Otherwise, it's probably not worth it. So simply put, you engage with Shadow Strike and then you spin. That is pretty much the offensive part of the character. The defensive part of the character is, when it comes to the skill speech, I'll be talking about Ascension as well, but we're spamming the pneumatic burst, and we're using the Ascension when we're engaging a single target heavy guy, something like a hero or a boss, maybe a nemesis, etc. As we man up, we Ascension, definitely, and then from that point onwards you will be using it in cooldown. But the character is really strong that, like, most of the time you will end up killing the guy within the first Ascension. For some defensive measures, as I do on all of my characters, I have a Courageous Tincture and I have an Ether Cluster on the same buttons that I've always used on every single character of mine. This is T for me. You can definitely go to your key bindings over here and check, change the 0 to something else on the secondary. As you can see, the quick bar slot T is for me. And if you're gonna ask something like, aren't you using energy potions? I am. But as you can see, for instance, my heal potion is over there, but that is only to be able to see the cooldown of the healing potion. Actually, like I use my healing potion from here, drink health potion by Q and drink energy potion by E. So no matter if this is on your bar or not, I'll be able to use the healing potion because it is bound to Q basically. As you saw, it is on cooldown, even though I didn't really like use it on my keybind on my bar. So let's engage this guy. So Ascension, Shadow Strike, so that the big AoE kicks in, and then you just spin. That is like all you do. And just remember to keep on Shadow Striking, because you want to like refresh this Abomination Poison on all the targets there is. The character is incredibly defensive, even though there's not that many options, simply because the stats are really high up there, and they're like back-to-back defenses that are about to proc. So one thing is obviously the resilience coming from the Oathkeeper. The other thing is obviously the Ascension that we have mentioned. You know, most of the time, the offense and the defense coming together so nicely that when you pop your Ascension, you'll be able to kill the guy before your Ascension is over, so you won't be taking almost any damage at all. The Ascension is giving you about like 178. If you use exactly my setup, it's going to be giving you 178 damage absorption. I strongly believe that damage absorption in this game, the flat damage absorption in this game, is sort of broken. I don't really think that is quite well balanced at all. Just to explain how it works is that like after all the mitigation, there's a number, you know, a damage number that you're going to be taking. So somebody swings at you, you mitigate it with your armor. Let's say it was physical damage. Now you're going to take 100 damage from it, okay? But we have Ascension up, 178 damage absorption. Now you take 0 damage because you would have, you know, you're still absorbing. So it's after the mitigation. Now another thing that I'll say is that like from every single instance. So while that guy was swinging at you, let's assume there's another guy that's swinging at you at the same time, it doesn't matter. You'll be absorbing from both of them 178, no matter how many actually. If there's some damage over time on you, 10 of them, you'll be absorbing from every single one of those ticks as well. It's so weird actually in that sense. So it's very important. This is the first line of defense, and afterwards, let's assume that the fight is still continuing, and in fact, you're taking some damage, because this is now in cooldown, and it's, you know, off. Now there's the resilience, at 66%, this will do almost about the same thing. It will give you maximum resistances this time, and physical resistance as well, and also defensibility, so you won't be getting procs. At the same time, it will increase the healing effects, such as this guy right over here, the Giant's Blood. The health restored section is the healing effect on that guy. And also obviously Pneumatic Burst is the healing effect as well. So it is going to be buffing those by 30%, so you'll be absolutely, in no time you'll be, you know, back to full HP, you know, not even considering your healing potion. Afterwards, hopefully your Ascension will be back up. Definitely. So apart from those, there's like a third line of defense that's coming from your components right over here called the, you know, Prismatic Diamond. I started running this on every single character of mine as well. This activates at 50%. Pretty difficult to get there, trust me. But if you do, definitely a reliable source of damage absorption from there as well. It's about like 10% damage modified, so it gives you a little bit of extra damage, but at the same time it gives you 130 flat damage absorption, exactly the same way how Ascension is working. And if you know, happen to have both of them up at the same time for whatever reason, it's additive. They will both be absorbing in total. So in that case, it will be like, was it 150, 120? How much was it, guys? 130. So it will be like 208. Some people are running stuff like Ghoulish Hunger in every single character of theirs, which is not bad at all. I didn't necessarily feel like I didn't feel like this was necessary for my Dervish, but it is not a bad thing to take at all. So if you feel that you'll be taking some value out of the Ghoulish Hunger, even the build up isn't bad, you could definitely go for it. In that case, I don't really have like a devotion set up for you, so you're gonna need to figure it out yourself. I'm sorry for that one, but trust me when I say this, I didn't really, you know, feel that it was necessary for this guy, the Ghoulish Hunger, even though it's like a massive proc. So this would be the fourth line of defense. Obviously you always have the Ether Cluster that you could press as well. Let's kill Cromney over here and then go to town to talk about some of the passives, some of the devotion choices. So in here, in fact, we don't really have a dispel, so he's going to be absorbing right now. There's no point attacking him when he has this shield around himself. When it's gone, we will nuke again. Alright, here we go. So this is an extremely fast killing speed. Actually, our single target is deceptively high. Just a small input, this is definitely the best character that I have right now. Granted, like, I can actually give you a link on down below to my spreadsheet, the recent spreadsheet that I've been making with from like every single character that I'm making and have made. Almost all of them are pretty strong, but I could tell you that, like, you know, this way or the other, they could maybe die. They could not be the perfectly, let's say, optimized characters, or they're maybe not necessarily the strongest characters. But this guy is extremely strong, guys. Like, this is probably the best character that I have when it comes to like all around thing. What is the nemesis versus this guy? Something like Kalagadra. I don't think like this guy should be going against something like Kalagadra. Something that is like hitting extremely hard in the melee range that will force you to go to range, you know, to like kind of kite. This guy is not capable of dealing damage from distance, so this guy wants to man up and kill it in about, like, you know, short term, and is capable of doing this versus even nemesis creatures. But something like a Ravager and Kalagadra is like extremely hard hitting in melee range. This is not necessarily the best thing that you should fight with this guy, so that's like the downside of the guy, definitely. But the best part about this is that, you know, both Kalagadra and Ravager, or maybe like Crate Entertainment, those things are not necessarily, you know, you're not supposed to fight them all the time either. So you could easily farm something like Crucible, Gladiator all the time with this guy, or you can push SR as well. Let's look at like the last parts of the skills. You know, we have crazy amounts of minus resistance passive, actually, you know, all around us. We don't necessarily need to do something extra to like put this on, which is also another shining part of this guy. We have 29 coming from there, 28 from here. Our EOR is bound to Acid Spray, which is 28. These are all additive, and then the Rumor is also the last additive one, which is 30. This one's a little bit harder to proc, but it's not something that you need to be worrying about so much, because it's in the hands of the Guardian and Guardians of Empyrean. It's a little bit like RNG. It will be about like 30% chance per swing when it comes to the Guardians. Most of the time when you're fighting something that's very beefy, in this case you have about like what, 50, let's say 60 over here, so like 110-ish minus acid poison resistance, which is very big, extremely big in fact. Let's look at the, you know, stats a little bit. We have about like 2850 offensive ability, 2824, not that high in my opinion defensive ability. The stats could be tiny little bit better with perhaps like a tiny little bit different setup, especially when it comes to the green items over here. Not necessarily sure what sort of piece you're going to end up finding. The armor rating was in fact the hardest one to optimize for me, because we had like a lot of commitments when it comes to the armor rating. One of them is the Watcher that I took to improve my armor. Yet another thing that I did was like the way that I have crafted my helm and my Widow Stings. They are rolled with armor percentage. And how you do this is basically using Angrim, this blacksmith right over here. Angrim in Devil's Crossing, he is capable of giving armor percentage when you craft. I think it's about like 30% chance. So as you can see, it's like armor percentage by 3, and it stacks up, it definitely does. So we have about like 2.3k armor, and that is sort of enough. I didn't really give like more points into Phantasmal armor, I have only 1 point into it. Our physical resistance is not that high either, but it's, you know, considerable, 34% definitely. As you can see, my CC, like in fact the CC resistance of this guy is really low. Like the, you know, freeze, the slow, trap resistance, The same thing can be said for the stun resistance as well. This is also why we have such pens right over here. Let's put it right over there so that like you can see it on the screen as well quite nicely. You know, I farmed these pens for quite a while, definitely. And the only reason that I'm using these pens in particular is simply because of my stun resistance, guys. I have no stun resistance if it wasn't for these pens, definitely. So you will want to find some stun resistance from, you know, your pens, your necklace, or your shoulder pads, as I'm assuming you won't be able to find exactly the same pieces when it comes to these. These are like the Waldron, the Nemesis, the Ether Nemesis that are dropping for you. This is kind of mandatory, but I wouldn't say the pens and the necklace is mandatory at all. There are some like other options that you can go for there, but I would definitely go for like some good rolled Waldron shoulders because they're giving you Eye of Reckoning +3, which is quite important. If I'm not mistaken, we could actually like go for 26 even without those shoulder pads, because we have like a lot of pluses coming from all around the place, but they definitely do help. So the rolls, they're not that crazy. For instance, this is definitely not necessarily the best item at all. You know, the reason that I'm using is because like I really, as a player in Grim Dawn, I really value the +1 to all skills a lot, and I like gaining, you know, value from every single point in that sense. Kind of like saving points here and there thanks to having something like this. You know, it's in most of my builds you will end up seeing me running these like pluses as much as I can in all around the place. There is another line of defense over here that we forgot to mention, Serenity at like 35%, but it's very, very, you know, at the end of the thing, I think 35% is not that reliable either, and the stuff that it's giving is not really that great either. It's just restoring a little bit of HP, and then 35% physical resistance could be like extremely good, otherwise not that great. Anything else is not that great. The gearing, guys, we're using Dunefiend, so you're gonna have to like use 4 pieces of Dunefiend, and you're gonna need to craft Widow Stings. Those are, I would say, like mandatory. You could definitely go ahead and use another gloves than these, but these gloves are like very big for you because of like, you know, a lot of pluses that you take, and at the same time they have good attack speed, extremely good attack speed in fact, and they're good when it comes to like acid and poison damage as well. So they're not bad gloves at all, but you could definitely run another gloves over here. But I would try to aim for some attack speed. As you can see, like I'm not even maxed out. This 200% is the attack speed cap in this game. The same thing goes for the cast speed down over here. If you're having, you know, attack speed problems, you could definitely give a little bit more points into pneumatic burst to gain a little bit more total speed, but it's kind of difficult to scale it afterwards. You could 100% run different boots, different gloves. As I said, like you can run different pens and necklace as well, but the rest of the items, guys, I would say they're sort of mandatory. Maybe you could run another relic as well to have some sort of like a acid poison proc, but you'll be able to like see my entire setup in the Groom Tools in the description of the video. So let me know what you think. Let me know if there would be something that you would change on your side, because I would be curious. But this is the best thing that I came up with, and it's working perfectly for me, so I'm going to be staying that way. Let's look at the devotions a little bit as well. Maybe even look at like how we can build the devotions as well, because sometimes people are actually having a hard time building up to that side. So in my opinion, this is the most questionable part of our devotion, Scholar's Light, because it doesn't necessarily give so much for this guy. So I apparently I needed it for the build up. But otherwise, like every single thing, as you can see, is quite valuable. You know, attack speed, all damage, physical resistance, crit damage, offensive ability, armor, defensive ability. Dodge is incredibly good for our guy because of, you know, getting a little bit more dodge from here as well, from the Shadow Dance. And then afterwards we have a little bit of like HP coming from the crossroads. We have offensive ability, crit damage, all acid and poison with the minus resistance. We have like a very good line of defense over here from the behemoth that is usually up. And it's also, as I mentioned before, scaling with the resilience a little bit as well. Then we have like the big proc from the Tainted Eruption, the Abomination, and we have a little bit of like crit damage, since like the build up was exactly the same color. We have a little bit of like crit damage, movement speed, offensive ability, chaos resistance, and offensive ability right over there as well. So literally every single constellation that we have taken, apart from the Scholar's Light, is extremely valuable. Let's tab out and try to actually like build up exactly the same devotion setup, so that like it would be useful for people that are like trying to, you know, do the exact same thing. Let me open my character on Groom Tools first, and then I'll show it to you guys. Alright, right here. So if you're new to Groomdown, there's some sort of like a baiting going on. That, you know, some stuff they're going to be requiring. So for instance, Jackal requires 1 red to be activated. So you take the red from the crossroads, right? But Jackal is giving you 3 red back, so you don't need the crossroads anymore. This being said, you can apply this to like multiple different things and, you know, try to gain a little bit more value from your points, because now that you have taken a constellation completely, maybe you don't necessarily need the build up so much anymore. If that makes sense, you know, abusing this mechanic, you'll be able to sort of do a lot of different things. So that said, I like to start with just like giving everything into, you know, just for the sake of theory crafting here, giving everything into the crossroads. I think this is going to be sort of straightforward. Perhaps maybe except the Solo Watcher, it looks like. So we need reds. Alright, we're gonna need to bait only the Solo Watcher, it looks like. So this guy requires 10 blue. We need 1 more blue. So let's take something like Hound. Let's complete the Solo Watcher. Now we will be able to respec out of Hound. How do you respec? Is very easy, guys. Inside, right over there in Devil's Crossing, right in that cell, there will be a spirit guide if you haven't finished the game. If you have finished the game, as in like killing Logarian, he will be in Conclave, in Forgotten Gods, or he will be in Coven's Refuge. As an extra, you can also respec in the Crucible as well. There are NPCs in Crucible too. So you just go to them, speak to them, click the devotions, and then, you know, take away the points from the Hound afterwards. That's literally what you do. It's the same thing we're going to be doing to the Crossroads as well at the end. So let's take like Abomination right here, and then if you remember, we only had like 2 points in the crossroads, so remove the other 3, the triangle, and then put those 3 right over there. So this is like the entire you know, devotion setup that we need to use. Let's go back to the game. Is there anything that I would like to talk about? Let me see. The resistances are looking fine. You know, you shouldn't really like worry so much about getting a crazy pants or like crazy shoulders. The same thing can be said for like the Kaizen necklace. Definitely not. You really shouldn't be worrying too much about these things. You can even run something defensive when it comes to the necklace. Probably with pluses at the very least to the Nightblade though, okay? That's what I'm gonna say. So from the necklace, try to get +1 to Nightblade at the very least, in my opinion, simply because of like, you know, balancing out the dual blades and the pluses towards here, pluses towards maybe the minus resistance is quite important as well, and you do gain a little bit of DPS from like the Cunning and the Mercy Support are over here as well. So it's kinda nice, definitely. That's probably a little bit more important than running like Eye of Reckoning 26 +1. So I think this is going to be it from me. Let me know like if you have any questions at all about the build. When it comes to the leveling, this guy, actually, like I should have probably mentioned this a little bit earlier, but I have the entire VOD that, because like I've leveled this guy on Twitch actually on my streams, and I have the entire playthrough voted. If you would like to check that out, it will be on the top right corner right now, starting from part 1. It's a ridiculously long video, obviously, video series even. But how I leveled this guy up is that like I played it as like a Nightblade guy with, you know, maxing out the blade burst, maxing out the lethal assault. You could play it with like cold at the start because the base is cold, as you can see. You can try to find like, you know, cold base weapons or like cold conversions with like cold stones on your, you know, cold stones as like components as your on your weapons, and you'll be scaling cold for a while. You can definitely continue doing this with like an entire Nightblade. When it comes to the Oathkeeper part of things, you can support your character from the Oathkeeper as like a defensive side of things. So you could give, you know, multiple presence of virtue, haven, ascension, maybe even max out clarity of purpose. The same thing can be said for like resilience. 10 points is, you know, the really soft space in my opinion for that one. And then afterwards you can sort of like come to the celestial presence as well. Now when you max out the celestial presence and the path of the 3, or when you reach it rather, this is the point where you're gonna consider respecking. Simply because now you have crazy amounts of like acid and poison support from both of the classes, let's say, because like up until this point you could have been just cold by, you know, staying with the blade burst, staying with pneumatic burst, staying with the veil of shadow, obviously, having the dual blades, having the blade spirits. You know, you could even like max out multiple things. You can even like max out the shadow strike a little bit. But as I said, when you max out the entire mastery bar of your Oathkeeper, what you could do is that at that point you can start focusing on poison and acid instead, and sort of play what I am playing right here. You know, you wouldn't be able to play the Eye of Reckoning because Eye of Reckoning is converting thanks to the Dunefiend set that we have right over here. If you read the 4 set bonus, it's going to be saying that like 30% of the lightning damage is converted to acid, and then it will say 100% of the fire damage is converted to acid as well. And then we have the weapon alone. So go to the top. It says 100% physical damage converted to acid. So we have about like 70% lightning damage remaining, but that is going to be being fixed by the mask, 34%, and then the chest, 35% conversion. So it's like about 69%. So in fact I have like 1% lightning damage remaining that I didn't convert, but everything else is acid and poison. So this is also why Dunefiend is a, you know, mandatory set to go for if you want to play like acid Eye of Reckoning. And then the cool thing that you can see your damage type is that like as long as the ability is on your left click or like your right click, you can go to your character tab over here. On the secondary tab you can mouse over the Eye of Reckoning and it will tell you what sort of damage you're dealing. So that 1% lightning was 4 damage in fact. The rest is acid and poison, as you can see. So we have tiny little bits of like pierce and a tiny little bit of physical damage remaining. I suppose this is coming from probably some like flat numbers from places, if I have to guess. But up until level 94 and where you have the Dunefiend set, you're not going to be able to play with the Eye of Reckoning. Definitely you could sort of play it cold, but in that case you won't be having, you know, these things supporting you. So I wouldn't. What I would do is like I would just play acid and poison blade burst and dual blades and the rest of the things basically, definitely. And like get some support from Guardian of Empyreans, you know, definitely max out the path of the 3, and your character is going to be just fine. You know, it's not going to be crazy strong, definitely not as strong as this, but you'll be able to farm and get to 94 quite quickly, and then afterwards you will convert to this guy. If you're very new to Grim Dawn and wondering where to find these items, like such as the Dunefiend sets, is they are mandatory for you. They're random drops, in fact, as like most of the legendaries and blues in Grim Dawn. About like 99% is, you know, not necessarily targetable, so you will need to like RNG. But what you could do is, you know, for instance, like the helm has a recipe that you can craft. So you write Dunefiend here. You're gonna need to find this recipe. You know, when when the worst case scenario, basically you can craft 4 of these helms, which is extremely expensive. You know, you wouldn't like to do such a thing. 4 Celestial Lotus per helm is really, really expensive, trust me. But you could craft 4 of them, 4 helms, and then convert the 3 of them into the other pieces using the transmutation option right over here. In the transmute, this option, the transmute a set piece into another part of the same set. So if I would like put my weapon over here and transmute this weapon is going to be becoming either one of the 3 over there. It's kind of like an RNG basically. So you're going to need like every single piece, but you can keep on rolling until you get the same. And it's not that expensive, to be honest with you, to transmute. It's only literally just 1 Eldritch Essence and 120k iron bits. You can make this in absolutely no time. But obviously getting the recipe in this case is going to be pretty difficult, but at the very least it's a little bit easier than finding 4, you know, pieces apart as a new player, for sure. So in that case, the character is not that beginner friendly because it requires some like specific legendaries to be found, for sure. But when you have them, I can guarantee you that the character is going to be ridiculously strong, and it's one of the better characters that I've made recently. And at the same time, it's 100% very tanky and really fun to play. And if you enjoy Whirlwind, if you enjoy, you know, Eye of Reckoning is what it's called in this game, you're going to be loving this build as well. And it's very flashy when it comes to like this green acid and poison all over the place. So that being said, I think like I've finalized this video. As I said at the very beginning of the video, please leave a like if you found this video useful or like, you know, good content, and feel free to subscribe to my channel, ARPG content all the time. If you have any questions at all about, you know, the Dervish, or if you would like me to add something on top or explain something further, please leave your comment down below in the comment section, and I'll be, you know, trying to help you out. So thank you very much for watching, YouTube. I'll catch you next time.